Chapter 5964. Lying down wins naturally. Yun Chujio did not know about the dispute between the two of them. She felt that the time was right and was ready to jump down from the stage. As she used the corner of her eye to look for a suitable landing spot, she cursed in her heart. She did not know why this little bitch was so hostile towards her. If not for that, she would not have taken the initiative to jump down. How hateful. Why didn't this little bitch die from the heavenly lightning? Boom. A purple heavenly lightning descended from the sky and coincidentally struck Fan Luyun's body. Fan Luyun would never have dreamed that a heavenly lightning would suddenly strike down from the clear sky. After being struck by the heavenly lightning, his body tilted and he fell straight down from the competition stage. Hey Shinjio, was this the so-called winning by lying down? Honestly, she had intended to admit defeat, but she didn't expect that she would win by lying down because of her jinx skill. It was so wonderful. At first, everyone was dead silent. Then, like a bucket of cold water being poured into a hot pot, they exploded. Oh my god, that Fan Luyun was struck by the heavenly lightning? Did she do something that the heavenly axiom doesn't allow? It can't be. Isn't she one of the 4 fairies of the divine enlightenment? Her reputation is quite good. What do you know? Maybe she is the kind of person who is fishing for fame. She looks gentle and elegant on the surface, but she might not be evil on the inside. Fan Luyun, who had just woken up, spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted again when he heard the discussion. The crowd became even more excited when they saw this. The topic of discussion shifted to Hei Shinjio. Yan Qingcheng's luck is too good, isn't it? Guan Zijie and Xiong Wang were defeated by her because they were distracted. Duan Li, on the other hand, tripped himself. Fan Luyun was even more ridiculous. He was struck to death by lightning. Now that you mention it, Yan Qingcheng is really lucky. There's no one else who has such good luck. Don't say that either. Luck is also a kind of strength. Otherwise, why would everyone want to get a good opportunity? Chu Feng almost couldn't stop smiling. He looked at Qi Chen, whose face was livid, and said, "Old fart, didn't you say that the little girl cheated? Could it be that heavenly thunder also helped her cheat?" There is a saying that goes, those who have achieved the Tao will have more help, those who have lost the Tao will have less help. With an old fart like you in the Divine Enlightenment Academy, your luck is naturally not that good. Maybe little trash, the little girl can get first place. Qi Chen was so angry that he gritted his teeth, but he did not know how to retort. Yes, it could not be said that Tian Lei was also helping that little trash cheat, right? It could only be said that Fan Luyun's luck was really too bad. Or it could be said that she might have done something that angered the heavens and incurred the wrath of the heavens. In the VIP seats, President Gus' mouth was so wide open that it almost reached his ears. Although he was an old fox who did not like to show his anger, the situation at this moment was really too fucking satisfying. He did not expect that even the heavenly thunder was on the side of the 10 Directions Academy, and Yan Qingcheng had won another round in a muddle-headed manner. President Yes' expression was not so good. To be more precise, his face was as dark as water. He had thought that Fan Luyun's victory was in his grasp, but in the end he was struck by the heavenly thunder. He was really depressed. However, he would not lose if he lost. He snorted coldly. She might not even be able to enter the top 10. It's a little too early for President Gu to be happy. Chapter 5965 was doomed. President Gu did not get angry when he heard President Yes' words. In any case, Yan Qingcheng had won 3 matches in a row. At least she had saved some face for the 10 Directions Academy. As for whether she could win the next match or enter the top 10, it was not that important anymore. The host on the stage announced the result very quickly this time because everyone had watched Fan Luyun being struck by lightning below the stage. There was no need to check whether Yan Qingcheng had cheated or not. The people from the 10 Directions Academy cheered again. Even Xiao Lianxiao clapped a few times. It was not that she suddenly had a conscience, but that Fan Luyun was on par with her. Seeing Fan Luyun make a fool of himself, she was naturally very happy. Hei Shinjio saw that the host handed over a straw again and randomly drew a straw. Just winning one more round was already enough. This time, she just had to admit defeat. The person who was drawn by Yun Chujio was a tall man. Although his appearance couldn't be compared to Lan Luochen, he was on par with Jiang Shuangli and the others. Yun Chujio had seen this person's introduction in the Atlas of Heroes. Yui, peak of the 6th level of the spirit summoning realm, Thunder Spirit Root. Yui looked at Yun Chujio with an unfriendly gaze. He had a good impression of Fan Luyun. Yun Chujio had previously made Fan Luyun suffer, so he naturally didn't like Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio also felt his strong hostility and killing intent. She thought, why does everyone hate me? Is she that hateful? Yui said coldly, Yen Qingqing, apologize to Luyun now and he'll let you live. Otherwise, this day next year will be your death anniversary. Yun Chujio immediately understood. So it was to make Fan Luyun happy. TSK, are you out of your mind? This is a competition stage. What right do I have to apologize to Fan Luyun? She did something wicked and was struck by lightning. What does it have to do with me? I'll give you a piece of advice. Apologize to me right now and I'll let you live. Otherwise, this day will be your death anniversary every year from now on. Yui sneered, good, very good. Since you don't know what's good for you, I'll send you on your way. As he spoke, he directly released his spiritual power lion. The lion's 3 claws had already materialized, and there were even silver lightning crackling on its body. It was an extremely frightening sight to behold. The people below the stage immediately discussed animatedly, this time, Yen Qingqing will definitely lose. It's hard to say if she'll be able to keep her life. That's right. The combat strength of this person with the Thunder Spirit Root is much higher than those with the same cultivation level. Even if Yen Qingqing releases her whatever claw, she'll definitely lose. She's the same. Why didn't she just apologize and admit defeat just now? She wants to save face and suffer. I'm afraid she's going to die this time. Behind the crowd, Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu's expressions were a little serious. This little trash was definitely going to die. Should they make a move to protect her little life later? Although this little girl was a little trash, she was the only child of the primal institution. It was a pity that she was killed just like that. Chu Feng's eyes flashed and he began to squeeze into the crowd. No matter what, protecting the little girl's little life was more important. It wasn't that he felt sorry for this little girl, but the main thing was that the little girl was still making a bet with him. He was still waiting to see this little girl make a fool of herself. Seeing this, Zhuang Mu also began to squeeze into the crowd. Qi Chen curled his lips but did not stop them. He followed the 2 of them and squeezed into the crowd. The people who were pushed aside by the 3 of them were naturally unhappy. Just as they were about to open their mouths and curse, they were scared stiff by Chu Feng's terrifying gaze. How could they still curse? Chapter 5966. Courting death. When the 3 of them squeezed to the front, Yun Chujio and Yui were already entangled in a fight. Yun Chujio still did not release her spiritual beast. She only relied on the occasional fireballs and movement techniques to fight with Yui and his spiritual lion. The result was obvious. Yun Chujio was forced into a sorry state and kept retreating. Yui seemed to have guessed that Yun Chujio wanted to find an opportunity to jump off the competition stage. He did not give her a chance to get close to the edge of the competition stage. Hei Xinjiu was so angry that she kept cursing Yui in her heart for being struck by lightning. Unfortunately, her jinx skill could only be triggered when she was unintentionally cursing, so it was useless to curse her deliberately. Yui saw that Yun Chujio was in a dangerous situation because of him. Seeing that she was about to lose, he said ferociously, Yen Qingqing, you're dead for sure today. I heard that you and that dead Beiyu are a couple, so I'll send you down to keep him company. I don't know if that Beiyu is blind, but he actually fell for an ugly and useless bitch like you. He's such a stupid person. He deserves to die. It's the life of a short-lived ghost. Hei Xinjiu immediately narrowed her eyes. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. Originally, she just wanted to find an opportunity to jump off the competition stage, but this Yui actually used a gigolo as an excuse. He was really courting death. If he had other spiritual roots, she really did not have much confidence. But thunder spiritual roots, courting death. Her aura suddenly became fierce. However, this guy did not forget to add drama for her at this time. He said with a righteous face, You insulted my brother Bayu. You really deserve to die. I am the only student left in the 10 Directions Academy. Even if I have to risk my life to enter the top 10 and protect the honor of the 10 Directions Academy, I will fight it out with you. As Yun Chujio said this, she took out a treasured sword and thrust it directly at Yui's palm wind. It was actually a fighting style where both sides were injured. Yui did not expect Yun Chujio to use such a fighting style that did not care about her life. She did not care about her life, but he did. Therefore, he stepped back sideways and commanded his spiritual mad lion to block Yun Chujio's treasured sword. Yun Chujio's treasured sword stabbed the spiritual mad lion's body, and she was also grabbed by the spiritual mad lion's claw on her left shoulder. Almost instantly, Yun Chujio's left shoulder bled, but she did not retreat. She jumped up and stabbed the sword in her hand at the wild lion's left eye. The wild lion also had intelligence. It was also the first time it saw someone fight so recklessly. After being stunned for a moment, Yun Chujio stabbed it in the left eye, and its figure immediately dimmed. The wild lion immediately reached out its claws to grab Yun Chujio, who had yet to land on the ground. Although Yun Chujio avoided most of the wild lion's attacks from an extremely tricky angle. However, her back was still scratched by the wild lion. Immediately, her entire back was dyed red with blood. The moment Yun Chujio landed on the ground, Yui threw a palm at her. The palm, which was full of thunder and spiritual power, had a thunderous momentum. It was too late for Yun Chujio to dodge it even if she wanted to. The palm wind really hit her body. She was sent flying several feet away and almost fell down to the bottom of the competition stage. Chu Feng frowned. If he continued to fight, the little waist's life would be in danger. He was about to go up the stage to stop the competition, but the little waist actually stood up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said proudly, Again! As long as I don't die, I will fight you to the death to protect the honor of the 10 Directions Academy. As Yun Chujio said this, she held the sword and went straight to Yui again. Chapter 5967. Pride cannot be abandoned. Everyone was shocked when they saw Yun Chujio, who was covered in blood, rushing towards Yui and the wild spiritual lion again and again. Especially the people from the 10 Directions Academy. They did not expect that Yen Qingqing, whom they usually looked down on, would risk her life for the honor of the academy. They were both ashamed and respectful. Even Chancellor Ren and the others, who usually disliked Yun Chujio, could not bear it. President Gu suddenly stood up and wanted to stop the competition. Even if he lost this competition, he could not let a good student like Yen Qingqing lose her life. President Yu was also quite shocked. He did not expect that Yen Qingqing had such a backbone and responsibility. Not to mention other things, just this alone was worthy of praise. He saw that President Gu wanted to stop the competition, so he did not stop him. Although it was inevitable that people would die during the competition, it was not necessary to cause death. He was happy to give her a favor. At this moment, President Gu saw Chu Feng, who was below the competition stage, shaking his head at him. President Gu then saw the 3 old men standing side by side below the stage. Previously, his attention was on the competition stage, so he did not notice when these 3 ancestors came over. However, since this ancestor did not allow him to interfere, he naturally had his reasons. Moreover, if Yen Qingqing was in danger, with them present, he could also stop her in time. Only then did President Gu return to his seat. However, when he thought of the 3 ancestors standing below the stage, he felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles, so he simply stood up again. At this time, President Yu also saw the ancestor of his academy and quickly stood up. President Ren and the others did not know the 3 old men. When they saw President Gu and President Yu stand up, they thought they were attracted by the competition. However, since the 2 presidents stood up, it was not easy for them to sit down, so they also stood up. At this moment, Yun Chujio could be described as a bloody person. Her clothes were completely soaked in blood. In fact, this guy could have found an opportunity to kill Yui, but in order not to expose too many flaws and to consolidate his heroic image of fighting to the death for the honor of the academy, he had dragged it out until now. Although it hurt a little, but it could also absorb more power of lightning, so it was not a loss. Yue was shocked by her reckless fighting style, and his face was pale and regretful. He might as well let her find an opportunity to jump off the competition stage. Her desperate fighting style was really difficult to deal with, and how could her life be so hard? She had lost so much blood, but she still did not die. Yue had the intention to retreat. Yan Qingqing, as long as you admit defeat now, I will let you live. Yun Chujio wiped the blood from her mouth, straightened her back, and said proudly, "Let me admit defeat? Don't even think about it. I represent the glory of the 10 Directions Academy, the dignity of the prehistoric branch. The head can be broken, the blood can be left, but the pride cannot be abandoned. Cut the crap, look at the sword." The eyes of the 10 Directions Academy's people started to tear up. Even some of the onlookers felt that their noses were a little sore. What a good head can be broken, blood can be shed, and pride cannot be abandoned. Someone took the lead and shouted, "Yan Qingqing, put in more effort. We have high hopes for you. Yan Qingqing, you can do it. You will definitely win. Yan Qingqing, good job. We all support you." Chu Feng clenched his fists tightly. His old eyes were filled with tears. Regardless of whether this little trash could learn the things on the 2 goatskin scrolls within a month, he would definitely accept this disciple of his. Chapter 5968. Proud and unyielding Chu Feng felt that his blood, which had been calm for thousands of years, was boiling again. It had been a long time since he had such a proud and unyielding student in the Academy of 10 Directions. Just such a proud and unyielding character was enough to become Chu Feng's disciple. So what if his aptitude wasn't good? He had all kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures. No matter how useless she was, her aptitude could still be improved. It was hard to find a disciple with good aptitude, but it was hard to find such a proud and responsible student in the world. Chi-Chen was also quite shocked. This little trash had a kind of ruthlessness. With this ruthlessness and the training of these 2 old fogies, she would definitely have a good future in the future. However, even so, she might not win this competition. After all, most of the time, she still had to rely on strength to speak. When Yue saw that Yun Chujio was unwilling to admit defeat, the crowd started to clamor again. He could not help but become angry out of humiliation. "Yan Qingqing, since you don't know how to appreciate kindness, then accept your death." He once again released the wild lion of spirit energy and waved his palm to attack Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio felt that it was almost time. Killing intent flashed in her eyes as she thrust her sword straight towards Yue's front heart. Yue naturally would not sit still and wait for his death. As he dodged, he commanded the wild lion of spirit energy to block Yun Chujio. However, he did not expect that Yun Chujio would actually face the wild lion of spirit energy and pass through the wild lion of spirit energy. The treasured sword in her hand ruthlessly pierced into his heart. Yue's eyes were wide open. He did not dare to believe his own eyes. Did this Yan Qingqing not want to live anymore? Her entire body passed through the wild lion. This meant that almost all of the thunder and spirit energy contained in the wild lion spirit energy had actually attacked her body. This was a completely destructive fighting style. Yue's thoughts did not last long. The intense pain made him faint. Yun Chujio was about to stab him again when she caught sight of 3 old men from the corner of her eyes. One of the old men who looked unfamiliar had already raised his right hand. With a thought, she kicked Yue off the competition stage. After she had done this, she sat down on the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. The scene was dead silent. Yun Chujio touched the ground with her sword and struggled to stand up. She had to rely on the sword to support herself. She glanced at the crowd below the. "Even if my cultivation is 5 levels lower than his, even if my physical strength is weak, I won. Who said that the 10 Directional Academy has declined? Who said that the 10 Directional Academy has failed? Even if our aptitude is ordinary and even if our skills are temporarily inferior to others, the people of the 10 Directional Academy have hot blood flowing in our bodies, and our hearts are beating with unyielding ambition. As long as our hearts don't give up and as long as our souls are still alive, The 10-Directional Academy will forever be worthy of the title of the most outstanding academy in the Divine Enlightenment continent. Yun Chujio fell to the ground with a bang when she said this, but the sword was still standing on the stage, as if it was her unyielding will and as if it was her powerful words. President Gu was the first to run forward. His trembling hands went to check Yun Chujio's breathing. Seeing that her life was not in danger, he let out a long breath and quickly fed her a high-quality healing pill. He got someone to carry her back to her residence to be treated. After knowing that Yun Chujio's life was not in danger, everyone burst into thunderous applause. They admired Yun Chujio from the bottom of their hearts. This kind of admiration had nothing to do with cultivation level or status. It was only because her words and actions shocked them and let them see that there was such a proud woman in the world. Chapter 5969's final ranking. The unconscious Hei Shinjio was elated when she heard the thunderous applause from the crowd. Not only did she absorb a bit of the power of the lightning, but she also set herself up as a responsible and proud person. It was simply killing two birds with one stone. Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu ignored Qi Chen when they saw Yun Chujio being carried away and ran away as well. Qi Chen's nose was almost crooked from anger. He looked at Yu Yi, who was being treated, and turned around to leave. He was also shocked by Yun Chujio's fighting style, but Yu Yi had a rare thunder spirit root. It was a pity that he died like this, so he was prepared to go on stage to save her. However, he did not expect that little trash to not kill him. He only kicked Yu Yi off the stage. It seemed that this little trash was not that ruthless. Although she had killed Guan Zijie and Duan Li, it was probably because they had angered her. Otherwise, she would not have had the intention to kill him. Although the little trash's talent was ordinary, it had to be said that he was really responsible and had a proud character. No wonder the two old fogies were so anxious to catch up. However, so what? Although that little trash entered the top 10, he was seriously injured and could not continue the competition. He could only be counted as the 10th place in the spiritual power competition. The top 9 were all students of the Divine Enlightenment Academy. They were definitely going to crush the 10 Directions Academy. However, why did they feel that the 10 Directions Academy was more showing their face this time? President Gu and President Yu saw that the three elders had left one after another. They knew that they did not want to expose their identities, so they could not go down the stage to chase after them. Moreover, there were still a lot of things to deal with here, so it was not good for them to leave. President Gu, what do you think about the next competition? President Yu looked at President Gu with a complicated expression. He had to admit that even if the 10-Directional Academy was completely defeated by the Divine Enlightenment Academy in the 100-year competition this time, just based on Yen Qingcheng's previous heroic performance, it could also win back a lot of face for the 10-Directional Academy. Yen Qingcheng can no longer participate in the competition, even if she is ranked 10th. President Gu said lightly. President Gu was worried about Yun Chujio's injuries and wanted to go back to take a look. Moreover, he knew that Yun Chujio was seriously injured and could not continue the competition. President Yu pursed his lips in his heart. What did he mean by saying that she was ranked 10th? It was as if she could beat the others without. However, since President Gu said so, he naturally would not object. He directly told the host of the decision of the two people. The host announced the results of the competition. As for the rankings of the other 9 people, they were all from the Divine Enlightenment Academy, so there was no need to decide who was better. The first round of the spiritual power competition ended in such a muddle-headed manner. When the onlookers heard the results announced by the host, they immediately discussed among themselves. In my heart, Yen Qingcheng is the first place. The rest of them just won by lying down, okay? Some of them did not even have a match, so why are they ranked ahead of Yen Qingcheng? That's right. Excluding the previous match with Guan Zijie, Yen Qingcheng defeated Xiong Wang, Duan Li, Fan Lun, and Yu Yi in a row. Can anyone else do that? What you said makes sense. Putting everything else aside, I'm afraid they can't even hold on physically. The Divine Enlightenment Academy only has more people. It's really unfair to win, shameless. Yes, it's really shameless. If you have the ability, wait until Yen Qingcheng's body recovers to continue the competition. I don't think any of the remaining people are a match for Yen Qingcheng. Isn't that right? Not only does Yen Qingcheng have pride, but she's also lucky. Even Heavenly Thunder helped her. 49690-339 The people of the Divine Enlightenment Academy were so angry when they heard these discussions. Didn't Yen Qingcheng defeat Yue in a way that hurt both of them? What was so great about it? Moreover, their 10 Directions Academy was not powerful enough, so in the end, only Yen Qingcheng was left. What did this have to do with the Divine Enlightenment Academy? Now, they were just taking advantage of the situation. Was there such an unfair thing in this world? However, they could not argue with these stupid people, so they could only sulk. President Yu naturally heard the discussions of the crowd and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This time, the Divine Enlightenment Academy clearly had the advantage, but they were scolded for being unfair and shameless. How could they be reasonable? President Gu did not expect the public opinion to be so favorable to the 10 Directional Academy. This was all thanks to Yen Qingcheng. If it were not for her, the people of the 10 Directional Academy would be so ashamed that they would not be able to raise their heads. Thinking of this, President Gu was not in the mood to chat with President Yu and the others. He hurriedly brought his people back to their place of residence. President Gu did not return to his own courtyard. He went straight to Yun Chujia's room. Chancellor Ren and the others looked at each other and followed closely behind. Although they did not like that little girl in the past, this matter had really shocked them. Moreover, if it was not for her, the 10 Directions Academy would not have been able to maintain their reputation. Naturally, they should go and visit her. After the crowd knocked on the door and entered, they saw Ding Wenru standing at the side with red and swollen eyes. Yen Qingcheng was lying on the bed with a pale face. Perhaps the sound of the crowd entering had startled her. She opened her eyes with great effort and looked at President Gu. Her small face revealed some shame. "President, I'm really useless. I can't continue to compete." Hearing her words, President Gu almost burst into tears. At this time, this little girl was still thinking about bringing honor to the academy. What kind of responsibility was this? President Ren and the others were also shocked. It seemed that they had really misjudged this little girl in the past. Although her cultivation was a little low, her nature was still good. Just this kind of responsibility and pride was 100 times better than the other students. Only Vice-Chancellor Xiao lowered his eyes and pursed his lips in his heart. This bunch of stupid humans. President Gu collected his emotions and said, "You have done well. You are the only student in the top 10 of our 10 Directions Acade. When you return to the academy will give you a corresponding reward to commend your spirit of not caring about the glory of the academy." Yun Chujia's little face blushed. "You really don't blame me for not living up to my expectations?" Seeing her like this, President Gu felt that this little girl was very rare. Even her character as a troublemaker became a little cuter. He gave her a few more words to recuperate well before leaving with Chancellor Ren and the others. After President Gu and the others left, Hei Xinjia's pale face immediately returned to normal. She glanced at Ding Wenru, whose eyes were red and swollen. "Sister Ding, it's a good thing that your eyes are swollen from crying for Nangongshi. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to act so realistically." Ding Wenru was both embarrassed and angry. She scolded, "Just lie down and recuperate. Although you are fine, the blood on your body is not fake. Is there something wrong with your brain?" Ding Wenru was really frightened when she first saw Hei Xinjiao, who looked like a bloody man. She was only relieved when she saw Hei Xinjiao secretly winking at her. 49690-339 Yunchujio side. "I didn't have a choice. I was forced to that extent, so I had no choice but to go all out. Moreover, after suffering such a small injury, it was worth it to make people look at me in a new light. Sister Ding, you weren't at the scene. The cheers from those people were like a tsunami. The way they looked at me was simply worshipping me." Ding Wenru looked at Hei Xinjiao, who was boasting so much. She was speechless. Forget it. It seemed like nothing had happened to her. However, it was true. Previously at Jenga River, this guy had been struck by lightning even worse than this. In the end, he was fine. He was a pervert. On the other side, President Gu returned to his courtyard and saw Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu circling in the study. Seeing him enter, he hurriedly asked, "Is that little trash all right?" President Gu cursed in his heart. Since he was so concerned, why didn't he go and take a look himself? However, he still told the truth about Yun Chujia's situation. Although she suffered some serious external injuries, fortunately, her internal organs were not injured. After recuperating for a period of time, she will be fine. Only then did Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu's expressions ease up a little. Chu Feng tried to cover it up and said, "Don't misunderstand me. I'm not concerned about that little trash. I'm just asking casually." Previously, they had hurriedly followed Yun Chujio back. They had wanted to go in to check on Yun Chujia's injuries, but they felt that they couldn't bring themselves to do so. In the end, they didn't go in. President Gu was already used to seeing these two people's love for face. If it were not for them wanting to lose face, the Primeval Academy would not have fallen to such a state. Thinking about it carefully, Yen Qingcheng's words made sense. The reason why the 10-Directional Academy had lost more than they won in the 100-year competition recently was because these two were the main culprits. If they were willing to maintain the Primeval Academy's teaching, the 10-Directional Academy would not be so passive. Of course, he only dared to think about these words and definitely did not dare to say them out loud. Chu Feng coughed dryly and asked, "What is the final result of today's spiritual power competition?" After hearing President Gus' result, Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu did not raise any objections. After all, that little trash was already injured to such an extent. Even if the spiritual power competition continued tomorrow, she would not be able to go on stage. If it wasn't for that little trash's performance in the spiritual power competition, our two old faces would have nowhere to go. How are the preparations for the talisman competition tomorrow? It can't be that embarrassing, right? Chu Feng asked unhappily. According to the Talisman Division's director Zhao, Jian Ziyu's strength isn't bad, and Ji Lingfeng's strength isn't bad either. It wouldn't be a problem for the two of them to enter the top 10. If they perform well, it's possible for Jian Zhiyu to enter the top 3 or even the first place. Chu Feng nodded. The uncertainty of the Talisman Seal competition was much greater than the spiritual power competition. If the difference in strength wasn't too great, it would be hard to say who would win in the end. Although the final result might still be a loss, a better appearance would still allow Qi Qin to restrain himself. Since that's the case, make good arrangements. We still have matters to attend to. After saying that, Chu Feng did not wait for President Gu to speak and directly left with Zhuang Mu. President Gu gave a wry smile. After a short rest, he summoned Chancellor Ren and the others to discuss the next day's competition. There were only 16 people from the 10 Directions Academy who had entered the second round of the competition. Counting their fingers, they could at most choose 5 people to participate in the Talisman Seal competition. They could only place their hopes on Jian Zhuyu and Ji Lingfeng. 49690339. For the sake of prudence, President Gu had specially called Jian Zhuyu and the others into the study room to mobilize them. Jian Zhuyu heard that President Gus' words were all about Yen Qingqing. In the end, he even called on them to learn from Yen Qingqing and strive to obtain good results in the talisman competition tomorrow. Jian Zhuyu did not show it on the surface, but in his heart, he was very dissatisfied. He secretly gritted his teeth. What was so great about that Yen Qingqing? She was just fishing for fame. That bitch did not have the backing of Beiyu, so she naturally had to find a way out for herself. That was why she took the risk to do so. It was simply not as good as what she had said. Moreover, she was only ranked 10th in the spiritual power competition. What was there to brag about? She could easily enter the top 10 in the Talisman Seal competition tomorrow. She might even be able to obtain first place. By then, who would still remember that trash? She would be the one to be praised. Ji Lingfeng was also very dissatisfied with President Gus' praise for Yen Qingqing. That Yen Qingqing was just lucky. If it wasn't for Guan Zijie and the others being unlucky, how would she be able to gain the limelight? She was only in 10th place. Tomorrow, his radiance would surpass hers. The other three did not have any other thoughts. They knew their own limits. They were just accompanying the Crown Prince to study. They could not enter the top 10. It was just a formality. The next morning, the people from the 10 Directions Academy arrived at the square again. Of course, Nangong Shi and Hei Xinjiu, who were seriously injured, did not come. Ding Wenru was supposed to take care of Hei Xinjiu, so she naturally did not come. After President Yu and President Gu met, they smiled and exchanged pleasantries in their hearts. President Gu, speaking of which, your performance in the talisman competition is not too bad. I'm looking forward to your performance today. President Yu said with a fake smile. President Gu said indifferently, I'm also looking forward to it. After all, there are many variables in the talisman competition. Maybe there will be a surprise. President Yu pursed his lips in his heart. Surprises? Unless another Yan Qingcheng popped up, the 10 Directions Academy would still be completely crushed. While the two presidents were bickering here, the students had already started to register. Jian Juyu and Ji Lingfeng had gone to register early. Their faces were full of confidence. Although there were a few people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy who were on par with them, and there were even 2 who were slightly stronger than them, it was still uncertain who would win in the end. Seeing that no one else had registered, the host let the contestants who were participating in the talisman competition go on stage. There were only 5 pitiful people from the 10 Directions Academy, whereas there were a total of 15 people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy. Just the number of people alone was a lot more than the 10 Directions Academy. Naturally, the onlookers could not help but discuss. I think the 10 Directions Academy has really declined. Putting aside the others, the number of people who entered the second round is too little, right? That's right. If it wasn't for that Yan Qingqing who gave the 10 Directions Academy face, the 10 Directions Academy would have been completely wiped out in the spiritual power competition yesterday. Speaking of Yan Qingqing, that little girl is really admirable. She's so heavily injured. I reckon she'll be lying on the bed for a long time. How pitiful. Just as the crowd was discussing, there was a commotion behind them. Someone shouted, make way, Yan Qingqing is here. Right, quickly make way, don't squeeze the little girl and get injured. Poor thing, she's injured like this, yet she still came to cheer for the 10 Directions Academy. What a good student. 49690-339. Everyone hurriedly opened a path and saw 2 guards carrying a soft couch over. A little girl was sitting on top of it. Her face was pale and without a trace of blood. Who else could it be but Yan Qingqing? Ding Wenru followed behind the soft couch. Seeing that everyone was voluntarily giving way, she finally believed Yun Chujia's words. It seemed that Qingqing wasn't bragging. It was clear that this guy's performance yesterday was very successful. Hei Xinjiu insisted on coming over. Although Ding Wenru didn't know what kind of tricks this guy had up his sleeves, she couldn't dissuade her. She could only find 2 guards to carry her and follow her. As for Nangong Shi's side, the situation had already stabilized. It wasn't a big deal, so she wasn't too worried. Just as she was thinking about it, someone took the lead and started clapping. In an instant, the square was filled with thunderous applause. The applause was mixed with praises such as, Yan Qingqing, you're great, and Yan Qingqing, good job. Hei Xinjiu blushed and cupped her hands at the crowd to thank them for their praise. Seeing her like this, the crowd's impression of her increased. She was not only responsible and proud, but also approachable. What a good girl. On the stage, Jian Juyu gnashed her teeth in hatred. Today was the day for her to show her skills. What was this damn Yan Qingqing doing here? She must have come here on purpose to fish for fame. It was really detestable. President Gu did not expect Yun Chujiu to come, but as the president of the academy, it was not appropriate for him to go down the stage and ask her. He thought to himself that this little girl was lively and active, so she could not stay in the room, so she came to watch the show. However, he didn't expect the 2 guards to carry Yun Chujiu directly to the registration place. President Gu frowned. Could it be that Ding Wenru wanted to register? But Ding Wenru didn't enter the second round? Just as he was puzzled, he saw the two guards carry the soft couch along the steps of the competition stage onto the competition stage, while Ding Wenru returned to the stands. President Gu was dumbfounded. What the hell? Could it be that Yan Qingqing was going to participate in the talisman competition? What kind of joke was this? Putting aside whether or not she knew how to carve jade talismans, just the injuries on her body alone would not be enough to allow her to complete the talisman competition. Wasn't this a joke? After the two guards put down the soft couch, they directly went down the stage. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Did Yan Qingqing want to participate in the talisman competition? The host coughed dryly and said, "Yan Qingqing, are you going to participate in the talisman competition?" Yun Chujio sat on the soft couch and said in a weak but firm voice, "Yes, I want to participate in the talisman competition. Although I don't have any talent in talisman, things are hard to predict. Maybe I will be the one who will compete in today's competition." President Gu of the Academy taught us that even if we knew that we might fail, we should still be brave enough to try. So, I'm prepared to give it a try. Besides, one more person means one more power. I'm willing to contribute more for the Academy. Although President Gu did not remember when he had said something so good, he still nodded unconsciously. Other things aside, this Yan Qingqing was truly thinking for the Academy. He did not know what He Xinjiu was thinking. He Xinjiu wanted to cling onto Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu's legs, so she naturally had to perform more. Once she became Chu Feng and Zhuang Mu's disciple, even if her true identity was revealed, the Ten Directions Academy would still protect her. Moreover, she had to use the two of them to come into contact with the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace. 49690-339. Although the host felt that Yun Chujio would not be able to complete the competition in her current state, since she had already registered, he could not chase her away, so he could only read out the rules of the competition. The competition was divided into 2 rounds. The top 10 in the first round would advance to the second round, and the final ranking would be determined in the second round. Following that, the host announced the competition items for the first round. Later, a staff member will give you a few jade talisman fragments. You will reassemble them. The time limit is 4 hours. According to the precise number of jade talisman fragments, the top 10 will advance, and the rest will be eliminated. None of the contestants had expected that the first round would be such a competition. Wasn't this too simple? After all, they knew how to carve, so assembling them was a piece of cake. However, when they saw that there were thousands of jade talisman seal fragments in front of them, their expressions changed. Not only were there a lot of these jade talisman seal fragments, but many of them were very similar. It was 100 times more difficult than carving jade talisman seals. To successfully piece 5 jade talisman seals in 4 hours was probably the limit. It was too difficult. After the host announced the start, everyone began to search frantically. Unfortunately, the number of fragments was too many and too similar. They were so anxious that they were sweating profusely and had no idea what to do. There were even some people who directly spread the talisman fragments on the ground. Fortunately, the competition stage was big enough. Otherwise, these contestants would definitely fight over the territory. Compared to the others, Jianjuyu was still relatively calm. She was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, she deduced the type of talisman from the fragments that had the most similarities. If she could guess the type of the final talismans, it would be much easier to find the pieces. There were a few other contestants who shared the same thoughts as Jianjuyu. Compared to the headless flies, they were much more relaxed. While everyone was busy, He Xinjiu took out a porcelain bottle, poured out a bunch of pills, and swallowed them. She said in a low voice, "I'll take some pills first. The wound is too painful. I can only take some pills to suppress it." Many people heard her mumbling to herself. They could not help but sigh. This little girl had really done her best for the 10 Directions Academy. After eating the pills, He Xinjiu took out a walking stick from her storage ring. She staggered to her feet and walked to her desk. It was a pity that after standing for a short while, she looked exhausted and collapsed on the soft couch again. Everyone shook their heads. Although Yan Qingcheng's spirit was commendable, judging from her appearance, she probably could not even complete a jade talisman, let alone enter the second round. Therefore, there were some things that could not be done by heart. One had to do it according to one's ability. Chu Feng and the other two appeared behind the crowd again and looked at the competition on the stage. The three of them were talisman seals masters, so they were not interested in this kind of simple competition. Therefore, they only glanced at it occasionally, and the rest of the time, they were bickering. Chu Feng, I see that your 10 Directions Academy is going to embarrass themselves again today. Hee, I'm embarrassed for you. Why are you getting worse and worse? Old fart, if you don't know how to speak, then don't say it. What do you mean you're going to embarrass yourself again? Our 10 Directions Academy was in the limelight yesterday. Chu Feng retorted in a bad mood. Chi-Chen curled his lips. Tisk, forget it. If it wasn't for that little girl Yen Qingqing, you guys would have lost a lot of face. However, that Yen Qingqing won't be able to save your 10 Directions Academy today. That look of hers can only be considered as being in high spirits. In reality, she's just going up to cause trouble. 4969039, you old fart, you only know how to spout nonsense. Where did the little girl add to the mess? Chu Feng shouted with his eyes wide open. Chi-Chen once again curled his lips. Where did I spout nonsense? Look at that little girl. She even had trouble standing up, let alone splicing jade talisman seals. It doesn't seem like she's here to participate in the competition, but rather, she's here to sensationalize. You're the one who's sensationalizing. At your age, have you lived to be a dog? To actually slander a junior like this, you old fart. Chu Feng's spirit was twitching. If it wasn't for the fact that he was in public, he would have directly attacked. Chi-Chen coldly snorted. I slander her? I'm just speaking the truth. Don't tell me you still think that little trash can pass the first round? Of course. Chu Feng roared. To be honest, he really didn't have the confidence to challenge Chi-Chen. However, he was forced to this extent, so he could only force himself to say this. Alright, since you're so confident, how about we make a bet? If little trash can pass the first round, he'll lose 3 jade sky tokens to you. On the other hand, if the little trash can't pass, you'll give me a phoenix marrow cleansing pill. Do you dare to bet? Chi-Chen said provocatively. Chu Feng immediately choked. The jade sky token was a high-grade material for carving high-grade jade talisman seals. It was very rare. He had always wanted to get a few from Chi-Chen, but he had never been able to do so. The phoenix marrow cleansing pill was refined from 81 heaven-grade herbs. It was very precious. Chi-Chen had many ideas about this phoenix marrow cleansing pill, but he had never succeeded. This bet could be said to be very big. The problem was, no matter how he thought about it, he felt that this was a bet that he would definitely lose. Don't look at how he kept arguing with Chi-Chen, but his heart was really uncertain. That little trash had only entered the upper house for a few months and had only attended a few talisman lessons. How could he pass the first round of the test? Not to mention that she was seriously injured and it was difficult for her to stand up. It was impossible for her to succeed. Zhuang Mu, who was at the side, also gave Chu Feng a look, telling him not to agree. After all, there was no chance of winning this bet. Seeing this, Chi-Chen's tone was full of ridicule and disdain. What? You don't dare to agree? But that's also true. Your 10 Directions Academy is getting weaker and weaker. That little trash is also from your Primal Academy. Naturally, he doesn't have any ability. Chu Feng's face was red and his neck was thick as he roared, Humph! I'll agree to it. When the time comes, don't go back on your word. Chu Feng thought painfully in his. If he lost, he wouldn't lose. No matter what, he couldn't let Chi-Chen look down on him. Even if he lost a phoenix marrow cleansing pill, he would have to find other things to make up for it in the future. Seeing that he had agreed, Chi-Chen immediately revealed a smug look. Good, a gentleman's words cannot be taken back. I'm just waiting to receive the pill. Chu Feng roared without much confidence. It's not certain who will win. Zhuang Mu, who was at the side, shook his head repeatedly. He reckoned that Chu Feng would definitely lose this bet. Unless there was a miracle, It was impossible for that little trash on the stage to pass the first round of the assessment. Time passed quickly, and 2 hours passed very quickly. The progress of the contestants were all different. Most of the contestants had successfully pieced together a jade talisman seal, while Jianjuyu, who was slightly more skilled, had pieced together 2 jade talisman seals. As for the prideful ascertain Jiu, she stood up, collapsed, stood up again, and collapsed again. Not to mention successfully piecing together a jade talisman seal, she had even accidentally knocked over the container containing the jade talisman seal fragments with her walking stick, causing them to be scattered all over the ground. Chapter 5976. I'll give you a bow. Jianjuyu saw the situation on Yun Chujia's side from the corner of her eye. She was pleased with herself. She had embarrassed herself, hadn't she? Damn it. Chu Feng saw He Xinjia's pathetic state and could not help but feel a little regretful. If he had known earlier, he would not have spoken so confidently. Now, a phoenix marrow cleansing pill was going to be given to that old brat Qi-Chen. Another hour quickly passed. Most of the contestants had pieced together the second jade talisman seal. Jianjuyu and the others were already piecing together the 4th jade talisman seal. On He Xinjia's side, she continued to stand up and collapse. Occasionally, she would have to swallow a large number of pills to relieve the pain. Everyone shook their heads. Although this Yan Qingqing had good intentions, she was overestimating herself. Wasn't she asking for trouble? She would definitely hand in the blank papers in the end. Why bother? President Gu, your Jianjuyu and Ji Lingfeng are not bad. It's a pity that there are fewer of them. President Yu saw that at least 8 of the students from the Divine Enlightenment Academy could enter the second round. He could not hide the smug look on his face. President Gu had expected this, so he was not too angry. He said calmly, "We did not perform well in the first round of the 100-year competition, so we were more passive. However, there are many variables in the talisman competition. Although we may not have as many points as you, the first place is more important. It's not certain who will win." President Yu sneered in his heart. It was not certain who would win? The first place in both the total points and the individual points would belong to the Divine Enlightenment Academy. At this moment, the host on the stage reminded, there are still 15 minutes left until the end of the competition. The contestants must hurry up. Hearing that, the contestants sped up their movements. He Xinjiu revealed a panicked expression and said in a low voice, "It's over so quickly? I haven't even pieced one together yet. What should I do? I might as well just scratch a few pieces." Therefore, the audience watched in bewilderment as she struggled to stand up and used her walking stick to randomly pull out dozens of jade talisman seal fragments. Then, she used her crutches to randomly pull out the talisman seal fragments into 5 piles. After bowing, she began to mutter, "Heavenly spirit, earthly spirit, the heavens will bow to you. You must bless me to successfully advance." Everyone looked at He Xinjiu, who was mumbling like she was a lunatic. Could it be that Yan Qingcheng's brain was not working because she was too heavily injured? She was just casually pulling and hoping to advance. What kind of joke was this? If this was possible, would the other contestants still need to put in so much effort? Qi-Chen simply couldn't hold back his laughter. "Chu Feng, Zhuang Mu, this little trash of yours is really a clown. Chu Feng, you'd better prepare the Phoenix Marrow Cleansing Pill. You'll definitely lose the bet." Chu Feng's nose was almost crooked from anger. On one hand, he was angered by Qi-Chen, and on the other hand, he was angered by He Xinjia's eccentric behavior. He thought to himself that he had originally wanted to take this little trash as a disciple, but now it seemed that this little trash's brain was probably not very good. It was better to take him as a disciple slowly. At this moment, there were only 15 minutes left until the end of the competition. He Xinjiu mumbled to herself for a long time. She stretched her neck and looked at the progress of the others. After swallowing a handful of pills, she asked the host, "Uncle, may I ask if these pieces that have been picked out can be stacked together, or do we have to splice them into talismans?" The host looked at the porcelain bottle in her hand and said, "Other people need to splice them into talismans, but your situation is special. There's no need to splice them together. This will do." Chapter 5977, 0. The reason why the host said this was because he was certain that the jade talisman fragments that Yun Chujio randomly picked out would not be able to be pieced together successfully. There was no need for him to waste his effort. After all, this Yen Qingqing seemed to be seriously injured. If she were to faint on the stage while piecing them together, it would be troublesome. Anyway, the judges would be able to see whether the pieces that were picked out could be pieced together successfully. There was no need for her to risk her life. Hearing that, Yun Chujio immediately showed a grateful smile with a pale face. "Thank you, uncle. You are really a good person. If I can successfully advance, I will thank you very much." The host, who had been given a good person card, did not say anything more. However, she thought to herself, advance? It was simply a fool's dream. How could a good girl's brain not work? Could it really be the sequela of a serious injury? Very soon, the time for the competition to end was up. The host immediately made all the contestants stop what they were doing and retreat to the back of their respective tables, waiting for the judges to judge their results. Jian Zhuyu looked at the 4 jade talisman seals on the table in front of her with a smug look on her face. With her results, she would definitely be able to successfully advance to the next round. In fact, she had already completed more than half of the 5th jade talisman seal. It was just that time was up and she had no choice but to give up. What a pity! She glanced at the 5 piles of fragments on the ground in front of Yun Chujio from the corner of her eyes and sneered in her heart. This Yen Qingqing was really good at playing tricks. Did she think that she could advance just by randomly pulling out 5 piles of fragments? What wishful thinking! The judges began to assess the results one after another. Some had successfully pieced together 2 or 3 pieces, while others had successfully pieced together 4 pieces like Jian Zhuyu. However, the number of people who were able to piece together 4 pieces was not many. There were only 5 people who were able to do so. In the end, only He Xinjia's results had not been assessed. Those judges had been sitting on the competition stage to supervise these contestants. Therefore, they were very clear about how He Xinjio had obtained the 5 piles of fragments in front of her. Therefore, they felt that there was no need to assess the results. If they were able to succeed with just a random pile of fragments, would the other contestants have to put in so much effort? Therefore, the few judges did not even look at Yun Chujio's 5 piles of fragments and directly gave the result of 0. Everyone was not surprised by this. After all, Yen Qingqing had used a walking stick to randomly draw, so of course, she would not succeed. Qichen laughed out loud. "Chu Feng, hurry up and give me the Phoenix Marrow Cleansing Pill. I told you that that little trash was there to cause trouble, but you didn't believe me. Now, you've embarrassed yourself, right?" Chu Feng's face was ashen. On one hand, he felt sorry for the Phoenix Marrow Cleansing Pill that was about to be given out. On the other hand, he was secretly annoyed that Yun Chujio was causing trouble. He painfully took out a jade box from his storage ring. Inside was a porcelain bottle containing the Phoenix Marrow Cleansing Pill. The reason he did this was because he was afraid that the medicinal effect would be lost. After all, it was not easy to refine this Phoenix Marrow Cleansing Pill. Qi Chen's eyes lit up. Just as he was about to receive the jade box, he heard someone on the stage shout, "I refuse to accept this. I protest. I object. I'm wronged." Chu Feng took the opportunity to put the jade box back into his storage ring. "There seems to be a new change. Let's wait and see." Qi Chen curled his lips and didn't say anything. After all, he wasn't afraid that Chu Feng would go back on his word. He raised his head to look at the stage and saw that Little Trash's face was filled with grievance and anger. His originally pale little face was flushed red from anger. "Judges, you didn't even look at my fragments carefully. What makes you think my score is 0? I begged God to bless me. I'm sure that these pieces can be pieced together successfully." Chapter 5978, 5 pieces. The same thought flashed through everyone's mind. This Yen Qingqing was most likely crazy. You begged the heavens to bless you, and the heavens protected you? The heavens were your father. If they simply begged the heavens to do whatever they wanted, they wouldn't need to do anything. They would just kowtow and bow. What was wrong with their brains? One of the judges with a goatee said with disdain, "Shan Yanghu, how did you pick out these fragments? Everyone has seen it. It's impossible to successfully piece them together. There's nothing impossible in this world. You didn't even look at it. How can you be sure that it wasn't successfully pieced together? Since you're the judges, you have to be fair and open. Even if I really didn't succeed in piecing them together, you still have to go through the process, right? In order to participate in this competition, I didn't care about my severely injured body. In order to stop the pain, I swallowed a few bottles of pills. You guys doing this really makes me feel disappointed." Yun Chujio said angrily and aggrievedly. The judge with Shan Yanghu wanted to say something else, but an even older judge said, "What she said makes sense. Although it's impossible for her to succeed, we still have to go through the procedure." Shan Yanghu's judge curled his lips and did not say anything. However, his disdainful gaze could not be more obvious. He walked in front of a pile of debris and casually used his feet to push the debris away. Then, he stood rooted to the ground as if he had been struck by lightning. The other judges did the same. They were all dumbstruck. The crowd did not understand. They were puzzled. Were these judges stupid? Why were they all in a daze? Chu Feng scratched his ears and cheeks anxiously. Unfortunately, he was too far away from the competition stage and the referees had blocked the debris on the ground. He could not see the specific situation even if he was anxious. However, he suddenly had a premonition. Could it be that the little trash had successfully pieced one piece together by chance? He did not dare to think of more pieces. After all, it was already good enough for this blind cat to meet a dead rat. The host saw that the referees were in a daze and could only go forward to ask, "Referees, may I know how many pieces Yan Qingcheng's score is?" The referees finally came to their senses and looked at the 5 piles of debris on the ground again. They still could not hide the shock on their faces. Shan Yanghu was the first to speak. "Impossible. This is impossible. It must be this Yan Qingcheng who cheated." Yun Chujio stood up from the soft couch in a flash, her face full of anger. "This referee, you can eat more food, but you can't speak carelessly. Which eye of yours saw me cheating?" Shan Yanghu was also too shocked. That was why he said what he said just now. Now that he was criticized by Yun Chujio, he immediately panicked, but he still said sternly, "If you didn't cheat, how did you manage to piece together 5 jade talisman seals? This is impossible. You must have cheated." The scene was dead silent at first, and then it exploded. What the hell? Did I hear wrong? Yan Qingcheng casually used her walking stick to piece together 5 jade talisman seals? Yeah, isn't this too unbelievable? Could it be that she really cheated? Cheated? It can't be. How could such a proud person like her cheat? Maybe it's really God's blessing. Yun Chujio looked at Shan Yanghu and said coldly, "The whole process of the competition was completed on the stage. So many pairs of eyes were watching. May I ask how I cheated?" Shan Yanghu said fiercely, "Humph. Maybe you replaced these jade talisman fragments. Otherwise, how could you successfully piece together 5 pieces?" Chapter 5979 was too outstanding replaced by me? This is a good way to cheat. This referee must have done this many times. However, these fragments should have marks, right? The referees might as well check if there is anything wrong. After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she swallowed a handful of pills and sat down on the soft couch again. The old judge saw Yun Chujio's flushed face and the beads of sweat on her forehead. He looked at Shan Yanghu unhappily. "Don't falsely accuse others without conclusive evidence." Shan Yanghu was very angry, but he didn't dare to say anything. He squatted down and looked at the talisman fragments. The other judges also started to look at the talisman fragments and didn't find anything unusual. Yun Chujio sneered and looked at Shan Yanghu. "This judge, is there a problem with these fragments?" Shan Yanghu gritted his teeth. "Even if there is no problem with these fragments, you did not advance by relying on your ability. It was just a blind cat meeting a dead rat." Yun Chujio curled her lips. "It doesn't matter if it's a blind cat or not. Being able to catch a rat is the key. No matter what, I advanced, didn't I?" Shan Yanghu was so angry that his face turned ashen, but there was nothing he could do. After the host received the approval of the few judges, he announced the names of those who had advanced in the first round. Yan Qingqing was surprisingly ranked first. Jian Zhiyu was so angry that she almost bled. That trash had advanced so easily? She had advanced in just a few casual moves? And she even successfully pieced together 5 pieces? Those eliminated contestants were even more frustrated. They had pieced together for 4 hours, yet they couldn't even compare to Yan Qingqing's random patching. How could they endure this? Of course, there were also those who were happy, such as Chu Feng. Ha, ha. This little girl's luck is really out of this world. Old fart, hurry up and hand over the Jade Sky token to me. Qichen was both angry and pained. He unwillingly lost the 3 Jade Sky tokens to Chu Feng. He gnashed his teeth and said, I think that Shan Yanghu is right. That little trash must have cheated. It's just that her cheating methods are more brilliant, so she wasn't exposed. TSKSK, can't afford to lose, right? This little girl's luck is just that good. She's just so favored by the heavens. Do you have any objections? Aya, this Jade Sky token is really not bad. Today is really a good day, Chu Feng said smugly. Qichen was so angry that his head was buzzing. He snorted coldly and said, Do you dare to make another bet with me? Bet on what? Bet on that little trash being ranked last in the second round, which is also the 10th place. Chu Feng rolled his eyes. No bet. He had learned from his mistake. It was better not to make such a loss-making deal. In any case, he had already obtained the 3 Jade Sky tokens. Seeing that he was not taking the bait, Qichen provoked him and threw out tempting bait. However, Chu Feng learned his lesson this time and refused to take the bait. Qichen was furious and could only give up. He gritted his teeth and said, If you're not betting, then I'm not betting. In any case, that little trash will definitely be ranked last. Chu Feng looked at the jade pendant in his hand and grinned from ear to ear. Last place is nothing. At least she'll be in 10th place. This little girl is really too outstanding. Qichen, at this moment, the second round of the competition was about to begin. Hei Xinjiu was still sitting on the soft couch. This fellow was lively and active, so of course, she didn't want to lie down like this. But there was nothing she could do. Yesterday, she had suffered such a serious injury for the sake of her proud character. If she were to be active today, wouldn't she be exposed? Sigh, did this count as digging a hole for herself? Chapter 5980, second round of the competition. As for why Yun Chujio did not openly display her ability in the first round, she had her own considerations. Firstly, she had never displayed her talisman talent in front of others before. If she were to rashly make a name for herself, it would inevitably lead to unnecessary guesses and trouble. Secondly, it was also to numb the crowd. After all, she had not finished reading the sheepskin scroll that Chu Feng had given her, so she did not know much about talismans. She could only catch them off guard and win by surprise. This fellow sighed in her heart. She also wanted to be awesome, but now that she was not satisfied with half a bottle, it was better not to be smug. Otherwise, the higher she went, the worse she would fall. Moreover, she deliberately wanted to set up the persona of Tian Dao's favorite, so it would be much more convenient in the future. After all, her cheap parents were still in the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall. If she wanted to save them and not be labeled as a troublemaker, the persona of Tian Dao's favorite might come in handy. While Yun Chujio was pondering, the host was already announcing the rules of the second round of the competition. Everyone thought that the second round of the competition should be for everyone to carve jade talisman seals. After all, this was the simplest and most direct method of assessment. However, the rules of the second round of the competition were out of everyone's expectations. In order to increase the attractiveness of the competition, we will adopt a brand new method of competition for the second round of the competition. There are all kinds of questions in my lot barrel. Some are for carving jade talisman seals, some are for identifying jade talisman seals, and some are for common sense and so on. In each round, you will vote for one person to answer the questions. If he answers correctly, he will enter the safe zone. If he answers incorrectly, he will be directly eliminated. This will continue until the first place is decided. Now, I will give you 100 breaths to consider, but you are not allowed to discuss with each other. The onlookers were full of interest. This method was novel and interesting. There would be a good show to watch. President Gus' expression was not very good. Wasn't it obvious that they were bullying the 10 Directions Academy because they had fewer people? In the top 10, there were only 3 people from the 10 Directions Academy and 7 people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy. They would definitely choose Jian Zhuyu and the other 2 to answer the questions from the very beginning. It was not a big deal if they answered correctly, but if they answered incorrectly, they would be eliminated. Yan Qingqing would probably be the first to be voted out. After all, she was the most useless. Everyone and President Gu had the same thought. They felt that Yan Qingqing would definitely be the first to be voted out. The time of 100 breaths was soon up. Everyone began the first round of voting. To everyone's surprise, Jian Zhuyu was voted out in the end. Although Jian Zhuyu was a little surprised, she was quite confident in her talisman cultivation. She stepped forward and drew a question, answered it cleanly and correctly, and entered the safe zone. The second person voted out was Ji Lingfeng. His luck was not very good, and he drew a difficult question and was directly eliminated. Everyone thought that the third person to be voted out would definitely be Yan Qingqing, but it was not the case. The person to be voted out was actually the Divine Enlightenment Academy's Dongfang Qian. Dongfang Qian was one of the 2 students with the best talisman cultivation in the Divine Enlightenment Academy. No one had expected that she would actually be chosen. Dongfang Qian also successfully entered the safe zone, but her expression was not very good. It was obvious that she had not expected to be voted out. He Xingjiu was not surprised at all. People were selfish. Those people from the Divine Enlightenment Academy felt that she was not a threat, so it did not matter to keep her. They might as well vote out their competitors first. That was why it was necessary to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger. Chapter 5981. She did not recognize it in the next few votes. Yun Chujio was still not voted out. She was still safe and sound in the team. Although many people did not understand, some people who had a clear mind could guess it. They sighed in their hearts. This Yan Qingqing was really lucky. Now that 2 people had been eliminated, she could at least get 8th place. Chu Feng was so regretful that his intestines turned green. If he had known earlier, he would have agreed to Qi Chen's bet. It was really a mistake. Qi Chen wiped off the cold sweat on his head. It was so close, so close. Fortunately, the old fool Chu Feng did not agree. Otherwise, he would have suffered a great loss. However, he was somewhat dissatisfied with the students of the Divine Enlightenment Academy on the stage. They did not have a sense of the big picture and were all selfish. In this regard, they were not as good as that little trash from the 10 Directions Academy. Just look at that little trash fighting with his life for the honor of the Academy. He was 100 times better than them. After a few rounds, only Yun Chujio and another contestant from the Divine Enlightenment Academy were left. He Xingjiu said shamelessly, "This student, look at me. I even have trouble standing up. Show me your spirit of helping others. You go and answer the questions first." The contestant naturally did not agree. In the end, the 2 of them had to draw lots to decide the order. He Xingjiu got the last lot as she wished. The contestant had no choice but to go up and answer the questions. Sadly, he was eliminated. He Xingjiu immediately clapped her hands. Even if I can't answer the questions, I'm still in 7th place. It's like winning by lying down." The 3 people who were eliminated were almost angered to death by her. What did she mean by taking advantage and pretending to be good? She was. "Yan Qingqing, draw the question you want to answer." The host said. Yun Chujio nodded and then muttered, "God, a good person will do it to the end. You helped me once before, so help me again." After muttering a few times, this guy finally drew a lot. After the host saw the question on the top, she took out a jade talisman from her storage ring and asked, "Please answer the name of this jade talisman." Yun Chujio's expression did not change. but she was complaining in her heart. This jade talisman knew her, but she did not know it. Could she continue to embarrass herself? If that was the case, wouldn't her character as the beloved son of Tian Dao be ruined? If that was the case, wouldn't the two old men despise her? What should they do? When everyone saw that she did not say anything and was certain that she did not know this jade talisman, someone started to argue, if you don't know it, then quickly admit it. Don't waste everyone's time. Yeah, we are still waiting to see the next competition. If you don't recognize it, just tell us. 7th place is already not bad. Hurry up and come down. Yun Chujio was burning with anxiety. From the corner of her eyes, she caught a glimpse of the VIP seats. Suddenly, her heart moved and she quickly used her spiritual sense to say, "Little grasshopper, you dumb, stop sleeping. Quickly help me ask Director Zhao, what is the name of this damn jade talisman?" Director Xiaofu, who was sleeping secretly, was shocked. He quickly lowered his voice and asked Director Zhao, "Director Zhao, what kind of talisman is that? It doesn't seem to be very common." It is indeed not very common. This is an ice-cold talisman. It is not an attack-type talisman, but a daily-type talisman. Some people use it to cool down. Director Zhao also lowered his voice and said, there was still some distance between the VIP seats and the competition venue. In addition, the venue was very noisy, so the two of them spoke in low voices. They were not afraid that others would say that they were cheating. Chapter 5982, Top 3. Director Xiaofu quickly told He Xinjiu the news with his spiritual perception. He was afraid that Yun Chujio would pursue the matter of him sleeping secretly, so he did not forget to flatter her, "Master, don't worry. I'll take care of everything. You're the best." Yun Chujio could not be bothered with him. She pretended to be enlightened. "I remember now. This talisman is an ice-cold talisman. I rarely see it, but I didn't remember it at the moment." The host was about to announce that she had been eliminated, but she unexpectedly answered in the end, so they had to vote for the next round. Jian Zhuyu was still the first one to be voted out, but fortunately, the question didn't stop her and she entered the safe zone as she wished. It was unknown whether the students of the Divine Enlightenment Academy had realized or thought it through, but Yun Chujio was voted out second. Yun Chujio still mumbled for a while and then drew a stick. This time, the question was still to identify the jade talisman seal, but this time, Yun Chujio did not need to ask the little grasshopper for help. She had seen this talisman seal on the sheepskin scroll before. Even so, this guy still thought for a long time before he said uncertainly, "The diamond tiger claw talisman." Correct answer, enter the safe zone. The next 3 rounds of questions were answered. Yun Chujio had passed without any danger. In the end, only 3 people were left on the field. Dongfang Qian of the Divine Enlightenment Academy, Jian Zhuyu and Yen Qingqing of the 10 Directions Academy. President Gu was pleasantly surprised by this situation. He thought that it was already good enough for Jian Zhuyu to enter the top 3. He did not expect Yen Qingqing to also enter the top 3. It would be even better if Jian Zhuyu won the first place. As for Yen Qingqing, it was better to forget about it. She had stumbled through these few rounds of guessing and guessing. It was already pretty good for her to obtain the 3rd place. Jian Zhuyu also thought the same way. She felt that she only had one opponent, and that was Dongfang Qian. As for Yen Qingqing, this trash, she was no threat at all. Dongfang Qian's thoughts were similar to hers. Previously it was just a small matter. Now that it was time for the real deal, didn't she see that the host had changed the lot holder? The difficulty of the topic must have increased. The host asked the 3 people to vote. Jian Ziyu's eyes flashed. He glanced at Dongfang Qian and Dongfang Qian immediately understood her intention. She immediately voted for Yen Qingqing. Jian Zhuyu naturally voted for Yen Qingqing as well. Just like that, He Xinjiu was voted out. This guy looked at Jian Zhuyu in disbelief. "Jian Zhuyu, we are classmates from the same academy. How could you vote for me? Didn't you always say that you put the big picture first? Didn't you always say that you are a friend of your classmate? So it's all fake." Jian Ziyu's face immediately turned red, but she could not explain herself. After all, Anyone with a brain could guess that she had voted for Yan Qingqing. He Xinjiu looked at her angry face and was secretly pleased. It would be better if she angered her to death. You White Lotus. This fellow mumbled to the sky again and drew a stick. The host saw the question on the stick and looked at Yun Chujio sympathetically. Then he took out a jade talisman fragment and said, "Please tell me what kind of jade talisman fragment this is within 100 breaths." Jian Zhuyu immediately gloated. Even she could not tell the type of the fragment in such a short time, let alone a good-for-nothing like Yan Qingqing. Director Xiao felt that this was a good opportunity for him to make a contribution, so he asked Director Zhao in a low voice, "Director Zhao, what kind of talisman fragment is that?" Director Zhao shook his head. "It's too far away. I can't see it clearly." Director Xiaofu, what's the use of having you? Chapter 5983, The Battle for the First Place. 100 breaths of time passed very quickly. The host looked at Yun Chujio sympathetically and said, "Yan Qingqing, it's time. Tell me your answer." Yun Chujio gritted her teeth. "I can't tell what kind of jade talisman fragment this is, but I can't give up like this. I'll just randomly guess it. Maybe God's blessing will be right. I'll guess the revolving talisman." Jian Zhuyu pouted. There were thousands of talismans. Could she just randomly guess it right? In her dreams. Then she saw the host's face stiffen, revealing an incredulous expression. He stuttered, "Yes, the answer is correct. Yan Qingqing has entered the safe zone." Jian Zhuyu, everyone, the little grasshopper who was cursing Director Zhao in his heart, "Oh, what kind of heaven-defying luck was this? How could it be right just by randomly guessing?" The 1,000-year-old corpse turtle emperor bug could not hold back its curiosity. "Master, how did you get it right? Your luck is too good, isn't it?" "What luck? This is strength. Do you understand? You insects are indeed brainless," He Xinjiu said with her spiritual perception. Therefore, Vice Director Xiao glared at Director Zhao, thinking that it was all because of this useless thing that caused it and the insects to be scolded. Director Zhao, who was glared at, was this Director Xiaofu crazy? Why was he glaring at him all of a sudden? Jian Zhuyu and Dongfang Qian began to answer the questions through the drawing of lots. Dongfang Qian successfully answered the questions, but Jian Zhuyu did not answer correctly. Jian Zhuyu was very unwilling. It was fine if it was Dongfang Qian, but why was Yan Qingqing, this trash, ranked ahead of her? However, this was the truth. No matter how unwilling she was, she could only step down unwillingly. Dongfang Qian glanced at Yun Chujio and felt that she was definitely the first-place winner. After all, no matter how good one's luck was, there would be a moment when it ran out. Only strength was the most reliable. The two of them thought that they would continue to draw the questions, but they heard the host say, "The questions for this round are the same for both of you. That is, whoever is able to carve an explosive jade talisman in the shortest amount of time will win." Everyone was very surprised. The explosive jade talisman was almost the lowest level talisman, but there was actually such a simple question in the 100-year competition? Although Dongfang Qian was surprised that the question was simple, she felt more confident. She could carve such a simple jade talisman with her eyes closed. After the host announced the start of the competition, Dongfang Qian took the blank jade token and started to carve quickly. Meanwhile, He Xinjiu was sitting on the soft couch, absent-minded. Dongfang Qian glanced at Yun Chujio from the corner of her eyes. Seeing that she did not move for a long time, she could not help but smile. The first place was hers. Everyone shook their heads. Yan Qingqing did not even know the simplest explosive jade talisman. She still dared to go on stage with such a standard? However, she could not hold back her good luck. Relying on the blessings of the heavens, she actually entered the finals. At the very least, she was still the runner-up. It was really infuriating. No one knew that actually He Xinjia's inner thoughts were as follows. How could the question be so simple? Did the person who came up with the question get kicked in the head by a donkey? Such a simple talisman seal could not be slowed down even if she wanted to. Wasn't it a little bad to be much faster than Dongfang Qian? Wouldn't it be too shocking to directly produce a supreme item? Forget it, Let's first look at Dongfang Qian's level first. In any case, it would be fine as long as she was slightly stronger than her. It wouldn't be too abrupt. Chapter 5984. First place. When Dongfang Qian had finished 1/3 of the carving, Yun Chujio had a rough idea of her level. She then picked up the carving knife and began to carve. When the crowd saw that she had finally moved, they all stared at her with their eyes wide open and kept discussing. TSKSK, not to mention other things, that Yen Qingcheng's hand movements are very fast. It's almost making my eyes blur. What's the use of being fast? I think she's just randomly carving. What you said makes sense. I've never seen anyone carve jade talismans so fast. She must be putting on an act. While everyone was discussing animatedly, Yun Chujio put down the carving knife in her hand and raised her claws. Host, I finished carving. Dongfang Qian was immediately shocked. The spiritual energy that she had injected into the carving knife was slightly unstable. She quickly calmed down and focused on continuing to carve. She sneered in her heart. That Yen Qingcheng must be lying. She must not have completed it. However, when she finally finished carving and saw the jade talisman's seal placed on the table in front of Yun Chujio, her head immediately buzzed. The jade talisman's seal placed on the table was a high-grade explosive jade talisman seal. Although the one in her hand was also a high-grade talisman seal, her speed was not as fast as Yen Qingcheng's. She had lost. How was this possible? Yen Qingcheng had only started carving when she was 1/3 done. How did she succeed? Everyone was in disbelief when they heard the final result. How was this possible? Yun Chujio knew that it was time for her performance, so she stood up with her walking stick. After everyone was quiet, she said, "Everyone, I know that everyone must be very surprised that I can carve faster than Dongfang Qian. There is only one reason, and that is that hard work can make up for bad work. I know that my talent is limited, so I have to put in more effort than others. If others practice once, I will practice 10 times. If others practice 10 times, I will practice 100 times. Speaking of which, I am ashamed to say that I only know how to carve one type of jade talisman seal. Coincidentally, it is this bursting jade talisman seal. Practice makes perfect, which is why I am able to reach my current speed. Actually, I feel that the first place should belong to student Dongfang Qian. In terms of talisman seal strength, I'm inferior to her. It's just that I was lucky." Hearing this, everyone felt relieved. So she had been practicing the exploding jade talisman seal. No wonder her speed was so fast. This made sense. It was also because she was lucky. If it were any other topic, she would definitely not be able to compete with Dongfang Qian. It could only be said that Dongfang Qian originally had some fear towards Yun Chujio, but now it had turned into self-consolation. It turned out that she was just lucky and could not compete with herself. Below the stage, Ding Wenru cursed in her heart. How could diligence make up for clumsiness? Why? When the wall was blown up earlier, this fellow was much faster than this. Moreover, those were all supreme grade items. Although Yun Chujio had said a few heartfelt words, the result could not be changed. The first place in the talisman competition still belonged to Yen Qingcheng and the 10 Directions Academy. Although President Gu was a little surprised that Yun Chujio could win the first place, his excitement was beyond words. President Yu pursed his lips. What was there to be proud of? It was just a blind cat meeting a dead rat. There was still the alchemy competition. Even if the 10 Directions Academy won the top 10, the total score was still not as much as the Divine Enlightenment Academy. Moreover, it was impossible for the 10 Directions Academy to win the top 10. Therefore, the Divine Enlightenment Academy would definitely win the 100-year competition. The people of the 10 Directions Academy also knew that they might not even win the 100-year competition in theory. However, they would not lose if they lost. They still had to strive for a good result in the last alchemy competition. Chapter 5985. Little Grasshopper's plan. As the most favored contestant of the Academy of 10 Directions, Xiao Lianxiao was both proud and nervous. Therefore, after returning to the base, she immediately came to see Director Xiaofu. Second uncle, I'm a little nervous. Do you think I can get into the top 3? Xiao Lianxiao asked somewhat nervously. Although Director Xiaofu was impatient, in order not to reveal anything, he still said against his heart, Lianxiao, you're so outstanding. You're not just in the top 3. I think the first place belongs to you. Xiao Lianqiao's eyes immediately lit up as she said, Really? Second uncle, do you really think that I can get first place? Today, that trash Yan Qingqing is in the limelight. If I can get first place, I can kill her prestige. The 1,000-year corpse turtle Emperor Bug's heart moved, and he said, Of course, you are the pride of our Xiao family. Lian Xiao, recently, I have also become somewhat interested in alchemy. Do you have any alchemy books in your hands? Lend them to second uncle. He'll return them to you in a few days. Xiao Lianxiao was so confused by the 1,000-year corpse turtle Emperor Bug that she couldn't find her way around. How could she not agree? She immediately transferred all the alchemy books in her storage ring to it. The 1,000-year corpse turtle Emperor Bug got what it wanted. With a concerned expression, it said, It's getting late. You should quickly go back and rest, lest you delay tomorrow's competition. Second uncle, then he'll go back. You should rest early too. Xiao Lianxiao left happily after saying that. The 1,000-year-old corpse turtle emperor insect curled its lips. That little girl even said that the insect race didn't have brains. These stupid humans were the ones who really didn't have brains. It looked at the books in its hands and felt proud. If that little girl encountered another difficult problem tomorrow and Chancellor Ren of the Alchemy Division couldn't answer it, it could also rely on itself. It was really too smart. In order to find the answers faster, it had to familiarize itself with the books even if it did not sleep today, in case it could not find the answers. On the other side, Ding Wenru asked He Xinjiu, who was reading a sheepskin scroll, Are you going to participate in the alchemy competition tomorrow? Yun Chujiu shook her head. I originally wanted to participate, but today's talisman competition made me understand a principle. What principle? Yun Chujiu sighed. Although I'm brilliant, talented, intelligent, and unparalleled, I'm not omnipotent. I've only read half of the sheepskin scroll. If I lose face in the alchemy competition tomorrow, it won't be worth it. So it's better not to participate. This guy was telling the truth. Although she won first place in the talisman competition today, the process was not smooth. Moreover, even if she won first place in the alchemy competition, it would not change the outcome of the 10 Directions Academy losing. There was no need to take the risk. She thought for a moment and added, In case of complications, we might as well not go to the competition site tomorrow. Just say that my injuries are serious and I can't go. It's a good opportunity for you to take care of your Nangongshi, hehe. Ding Wenru was both embarrassed and angry. She glared at her and ignored her. He Xinjiu laughed evilly again. All right, Sister Ding, you haven't seen Nangongshi all day, right? I wonder if he's better. His injuries aren't light. Why don't you go and see him while it's still not too late? Ding Wenru hesitated for a while before she left in a hurry. He Xinjiu sighed. She didn't know when she would see the pretty boy again. How could she miss him after only being apart for a few days? This fellow remembered that Di Baiming wasn't in the mood to look at the sheepskin scroll anymore. He lay there in a daze. Recalling what had happened in the ruins of miracles, she suddenly remembered the red mask that she had thrown into the spirit beast bag, so she scanned the spirit beast bag with her spiritual sense. Chapter 5986 was read at night in the spirit beast bag. The little dragon and Peach Blossom were mumbling something while Buttface was watching them with a resentful look. He Xinjiu couldn't help but laugh in her heart. Buttface was a living example of what it meant to be a single dog. Yun Chujiu moved her spiritual sense away from Buttface and saw Shaimo in the corner. Shaimo knelt in front of the red mask devoutly. His mouth opened and closed, but no one knew what he was mumbling about. Yun Chujiu's heart skipped a beat, and she activated her spiritual sense to communicate with him. Shaimo, what are you doing? Shaimo said unhappily, I'm reporting to His Majesty, the Demon Emperor, about what happened all these years. Don't disturb me. You're really stupid to say that you're stupid. This mask isn't the demon emperor. What's the point of saying all this? Yun Chujio curled her lips and said, I'm willing. It's none of your business. Sha Mo said impatiently. Yun Chujio gritted her teeth. This damn Sha Mo was getting more and more arrogant. He really deserved to be taught a lesson. Therefore, Hei Shinjio used her spiritual sense and took out the red mask from the spiritual beast bag. What are you doing? Give me back the mask of the Devil Emperor. Sha Mo roared angrily. Yun Chujio ignored him. She held the red mask in her hand and looked at it a few times. She curled her lips. Is this nothing special? Are you sure this is really the mask of the Devil Emperor? Of course. There is the aura of our Devil Emperor on it. Quickly return the mask to me. Otherwise, your dirty hands will tarnish the mask of the Devil Emperor. Yun Chujio curled her lips. You want the mask? That will depend on your performance. Come, say something nice to make me feel comfortable. Sha Mo was naturally unwilling to give in at the beginning, but when he heard that Yun Chujio wanted to draw a little bastard on the mask, he could only gnash his teeth and say, Master, I was wrong. Yun Chujio snorted coldly. Do you know where you were wrong? Sha Mo resisted the urge to curse and said against his heart, I shouldn't have treated Master so badly. I've realized my mistake, and I won't make it again in the future. Seeing that he had given in, Yun Chujio snorted coldly, Sha Mo, don't forget that we have already signed the demon god contract. Even if I don't use the mask to threaten you, I have 10,000 ways to torture you. You better be tactful. Sha Mo gritted his teeth in hatred, but he could only say against his heart, Yes, I know my mistake. I won't do it again in the future. Can you return the mask to me now? Yun Chujio didn't make things difficult for him anymore. She put the red mask back into the spirit beast pouch. The reason was very simple. This thing had its eyes on Sha Mo, so it was useless for her to keep it. Besides, Sha Mo was still useful, so she couldn't force him too much. However, was this Sha Mo stupid? Why didn't he put the red mask into his storage ring? Wasn't he waiting to be tormented by her? Could it be that he was suffering from a torturous physique, and would feel uncomfortable if he didn't get beaten up by her every few days? If Sha Mo knew Hei Xinjia's thoughts, he would probably be so angry that he would vomit blood. He wasn't a fool, so he naturally thought of putting the red mask into his storage ring, but he couldn't. This was really unreasonable. How could he not accept this stinky girl when he could accept her? However, he thought about it again. It was probably because he was in the spirit beast bag that His Majesty's mask had deigned to come in. It had nothing to do with that stinky girl. The next day, the last pill refining competition of the 100-year grand competition was held as scheduled. Director Xiaofu, who had 2 dark circles under his eyes, stretched his neck and looked for a long time, but did not see Yun Chujio coming over. Immediately, his heart turned cold. Damn it, he was reading all night for nothing. Chapter 5987 Your eldest cousin is here. Director Xiaofu was puzzled. That black-hearted girl loved to show off and join in the fun. Why was she not here yet? The others did not feel surprised. Yesterday, that girl had endured her serious injuries and came over. It was normal for her not to come today. Moreover, she could not possibly know how to make talismans and refine pills. It was useless even if she came. Qingqing, are you really not going over today? Ding Wenru asked tentatively. Yun Chujio flipped through the sheepskin scroll in her hand and said, I'm not going. Even if I get first place in pill refinement, it's useless. What's the point of going through all this trouble? Besides, I'm already so outstanding. If I gain another halo, how will others live? Ding Wenru saw that Yun Chujio was determined not to go to the venue, so she found an excuse to see Nangongshi. Yun Chujio looked at Ding Wenru's back and clicked her tongue. These young people nowadays only know how to love each other all day long. There aren't many people who are as diligent and eager to learn as me. This guy muttered a few words and continued to look at the sheepskin scroll in his hand. In the end, this guy was still not confident. Otherwise, how could she let go of such a good opportunity to make a name for herself? While this guy was looking, a guard said from outside, Student Yen, Your relatives are here to visit you. Yun Chujio was stunned. Relatives are here to visit you? How could she have any relatives in the Divine Enlightenment continent? While she was puzzled, she walked out of the house with her walking stick. City Lord Murong arranged a separate courtyard for President Gu and the others, but these students' rooms were all together, sharing the same courtyard. Therefore, Ding Wenru, who was speaking in Nangong Shi's room, also heard the guard's words and went into the courtyard. Yun Chujio looked at the guard who reported the news with confusion. My relative? What relative? He said he's your eldest cousin, the guard said. Originally, he wasn't willing to come in to report, but that person was so generous that he found it hard to refuse, so he came in to say. As for whether he would see him or not, that had nothing to do with him. Yun Chujio's face immediately stiffened. Her eldest cousin? Needless to say, it must be the blue dregs who had found him. She also knew that no matter how hard she tried to hide it, she would not be able to deceive that blue dregs. Should she see him or not? When the guard saw that Yun Chujio did not say anything, he thought of the person's instructions and said, Student Yen, your eldest cousin said that he has something very important to tell you. It's about your parents. Yun Chujio was so angry that she gritted her teeth. It was about her parents. She wanted to see them whether she wanted to or not. Yun Chujio greeted Ding Wenru and pretended to limp as she followed the guard to the place where the guest was. Fortunately, it was not too far away and they arrived very quickly. The guard had previously received the money, so it was naturally convenient for him. After leading Yun Chujio to the place, he retreated and even helped to close the door. Yun Chujio rolled her eyes and looked at Lan Luochen, who was wearing a bamboo hat in front of her. She thought to herself, at least he was tactful and knew how to cover up. Otherwise, if those people from the Divine Devil Hall saw her, her identity would be exposed immediately. Since Lan Luochen had already come looking for her, it was useless even if she did not admit it. Hence, this fellow said enthusiastically, Io, big cousin, long time no see. How have you been? Lan Luochen took off his bamboo hat and placed it on the side. He glanced at Yun Chujio. His gaze did not have the usual crazed and infatuated look. He said indifferently, I'm all right. Yun Chujio could not help but feel her heart skip a beat. What was this Landregs up to this time? Why did he look different from before? Yun Chujio suppressed the doubt in her heart and asked, Big cousin, why are you looking for me? Chapter 5988. I need to be more humble in the future. I'm sure you also know that I'm in an awkward situation in the Bai family, so I need external help. And if you want to save your parents, you'll have to clash with the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace sooner or later, and you'll need help. So I came here today to cooperate with you. Lan Luochen poured a cup of tea for Yun Chujio and himself and said lightly. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. Cooperate? What kind of joke was this? It was not as if her brain had been kicked by a donkey. Big cousin, I appreciate your kindness, but I have my own ways to deal with my parents' matters. Moreover, I still have my fiancé. Yun Chujio emphasized the words fiancé. Lan Luchen's expression did not change, but his left hand under his sleeve tightened and said lightly, He can't take care of himself, how can he help you? Little Gio, the divine inspiration continent isn't like other continents. You won't be able to fight against a behemoth like the 10,000 Buddha's temple in a short time. Only by working together can we benefit each other. I admit that I was a bit extreme before, but now I've thought it through. I only want to get what originally belonged to my mother. I'm not in the mood to think about the affairs between children, so it won't cause you any trouble. Yun Chujio sighed faintly. Eldest cousin, whether what you said is true or not, but in order to not let my fiancé misunderstand, it's better for us to have less contact. As for the matter of cooperation, you'd better find someone else. Lan Luchen's hands tightened under his sleeves again, but his tone didn't fluctuate. All right, since you're unwilling, I won't force you. Goodbye. Yun Chujio didn't expect Lan Luochen to give up so easily. She didn't believe it until Lan Luochen disappeared. She wondered what was going on. Was he plotting something again? However, the most he could do was to expose her identity. Although she hadn't officially accepted him as her teacher, the two old men would probably protect her. It didn't matter if he was willing to expose her. This guy silently praised himself in his heart. Fortunately, she was smart and had hugged his legs in advance. Otherwise, she would not be so calm and composed now. When he thought about how he had become the little ninth patriarch after returning to the academy, he immediately threw the little troubles that Lan Luochen had brought to the back of his mind. On the other side, Lan Luochen brought his bamboo hat out of the gate, and his eyes became malicious. He originally did not have much hope, but it did not matter. As long as he became strong enough, there would be a day when little Nine would not reject him. However, even if his talent was amazing, it was too slow to cultivate step by step. He might be able to consider that person's suggestion. When Yun Chujio returned to her residence, Ding Wenru asked with concern, "Qingqing, is it really your eldest cousin who is looking for you?" Yun Chujio nodded. "Yes, it's nothing serious. He has already left." Ding Wenru only heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that Yun Chujio was as usual. In the evening, President Gu and the others came back dejectedly. Although the results of the alchemy competition were not too bad, and Xiao Lianxiao was in second place, the total score was still much lower than that of the Divine Enlightenment Academy. After listening to Ding Wenru's explanation, Yun Chujio sighed. "Sister Ding, I feel a little bad. Although I got first place in the first round of the competition, 10th place in the spiritual power competition, and first place in the talisman making competition, I still feel like a good for nothing. After all, in the past, I always got first place in the competition. This is the first time I have encountered a setback. As expected, one should not be too proud. I must be more modest in the future." Chapter 5989 returned to the 10 Directions Academy. Ding Wenru was speechless. After a while, she said, "Qingqing, you can put your modesty aside. The Northern UM, is not here for the time being. When you return to the academy, there will be rumors. You have to be mentally prepared." Yun Chujio raised her eyebrows. Mentally prepared for what? Those people didn't dare to go too far in the past. They were more or less afraid of Beiyu. Now that Beiyu is not here, those people will definitely become even worse, Ding Wenru said worriedly. As expected, women in love are all fools. Now that we have two indestructible backers, what are we afraid of? The 10 Directions Academy can do whatever they want. Whoever dares to provoke us will die. Yun Chujio said smugly. "Qingqing, I know you are talking about the two supreme elders, but can they help us? Can you really learn the things on the sheepskin scroll in a month? Moreover, even if you can learn it, there is still a month. Don't worry. Even if those two old men are not our master now, I still have a way to make them vent their anger on our behalf. You just wait and see." Hei Xinjiao smiled sinisterly like a wolf with a big tail. Although she had already complained about it previously as time passed, it was inevitable that the anger of the two old men would subside. If there was a chance, she would fan them again and light up the fire. The next day, the people from the 10 Directions Academy left the City of Miracle for their return journey. Because they had lost the 100-year competition, everyone was not in a good mood. Because of Bai Ye's disappearance, Hei Xinjiao also pretended to be sad and occasionally wiped her tears. Ding Wenru's admiration in her heart was like a torrential river. She was impressed by her acting skills. Other than Xiao Lianxiao and Jian Zhuyu, the others treated Yun Chujio much better. After all, the scene where Yun Chujio fought with her life for the honor of the academy was too touching. Xiao Lianxiao was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Originally, she was ranked second in the alchemy competition and surpassed Jian Zhuyu, but the limelight was stolen by that trash, Yan Qingqing. How hateful! But it didn't matter. These people were really few in number. The others in the academy would definitely not be so stupid. Now that Beiyu was dead, no one would protect this trash anymore. They would deal with her when they returned to the academy. Jian Zhuyu was not in a good mood either. Xiao Lianxiao, this idiot, was nothing to be afraid of, but Yan Qingqing had won the hearts of many people this time. She had to think of a way. She thought for a moment, took out a voice transmission talisman and said a few words. Her eyes flashed with a calculating light. 2 days later, Yun Chujio received a voice transmission talisman from Jiang Hong of the Talisman Seal Division. She had not made a sound after subduing Yin Zhang and Jiang Hong at the Six Harmonies Waterside Pavilion. Others did not know that they were her people. Yun Chujio did not make things difficult for the two of them. She just asked them to keep an eye out for some movements. Her performance was not bad. Thinking of the news that the two of them had sent over, the corners of Yun Chujio's mouth curled up. She had originally been worried about how to fan the flames, but now she had someone to help her. The journey was very smooth. A few days later, everyone returned to the upper house. President Gu was not in the mood to say anything. When they reached the upper house, he dismissed everyone. Ding Wenru supported He Xinjiu, who was still staggering as they walked towards the primal institution. The two of them had just reached the entrance of the primal institution when they were stopped by someone. The people who stopped them were more than a dozen people from the Talisman Seal branch. The person in the lead was called Jian Chenjin, the cousin of Jian Chenmu, who had been burned to death by Yun Chujio. After Jian Chenmu's death, his lackeys had all followed Jian Chenjin. Chapter 5990 was going too far. Jian Chenjin looked at Yun Chujio with a gloating expression. Yan Qingqing, I heard that Beiyu died? Tiskeiske, now that you don't have a backer, let's see how arrogant you are. Yun Chujio couldn't be bothered with such an idiot. Just as she was about to push the door open and enter, she heard Jian Chenjin say proudly, "Oh right, didn't a few of our Talisman Seal and Alchemy branches disappear? In order to prevent your prehistoric branch from having an array formation underground, we helped you to search for it out of kindness. After rummaging through it, we finally confirmed that there was no array formation down there. Shouldn't you give us some hard-earned money?" Ding Wenru suddenly had an ominous premonition in her heart. What did you say? You rummaged through our courtyard? What right do you have to enter our primeval branch without permission? How can it be called without permission? We asked the 3 chancellors who stayed behind and the other 3 vice-chancellors to enter after obtaining permission. Moreover, I'm doing this for your own good. If you were accidentally teleported to the secret realm, you would be shocked even if nothing happened, right? Yes. Jian Chenjin said proudly. He didn't have the courage to do this at first, but when he thought of the benefits that Jian Jiu promised, plus he felt that Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru didn't have any backers, he dared to do this. Ding Wenru's face was livid with anger. You guys have gone too far. Qingqing, let's go in and take a look. After Ding Wenru finished speaking, she helped Yun Chujio walk to the front door of the primal institution. The front door of the primal institution had been splashed with a lot of dog blood. Some had dried up after a long time, and some had obviously just been splashed for a short time. Ding Wenru could not care less and pushed open the door. The inside of the prehistoric institution was in a mess. The stone tables and chairs on the ground were smashed into pieces, and the ground was dug into a mess. The windows and doors of the houses were torn down, and the furnishings inside were also smashed into pieces. Ding Wenru was so angry that she was trembling. You guys are too much. You obviously did it on purpose. They'll go to the dean and seek justice now. Then go and look for him. We have good intentions. Jian Chenjin had an unbridled look on his face. The people from the 6 branches did not like these 2 good-for-nothings. Otherwise, they would not have been ignored when they caused such a ruckus in the primal region, so no one would care about them now. Moreover, Beiyu was already dead, and Nangong Shi was injured. No one would help these 2 good-for-nothings. Ding Wenru was so angry that she started cursing, but Yun Chujio remained silent with a dejected expression. Jian Chenjin curled his lips. Forget it, look at how poor you are. You won't be able to pay for your hard work. Let's go. Qingqing, let's go. They'll support you. Let's go find President Gu and seek justice. Ding Wenru was both angry and resentful. These people were really going too far. It was one thing for them to mess around outside the courtyard gate, but now they had actually ruined their courtyard and house to such an extent. This was too much. Yun Chujio's dejected face revealed a trace of a smile. Sister Ding, why do you think some people are so persistent in seeking death? Ding Wenru was frightened by the sinister smile on her face. What do you mean? It's nothing. We are not going to look for President Gu. We are going to look for the chancellors of the 6 branches. I believe they will uphold justice for us, Yun Chujio said faintly. Qingqing, Jian Chenjin is from the Talisman Seal branch. We can just look for Director Zhao from the Talisman Seal branch. Why do we have to look for the other 5 chancellors? Ding Wenru asked in confusion. Chapter 5991 Patience. Didn't Jian Chenjin say that the 5 branches had also agreed? Since that's the case, it's naturally not good to discriminate. Let's all go and ask. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. Since it was a slap in the face, of course it was better to be neat and tidy. Not a single one could be missing. Although Ding Wenru did not understand, she had always followed Yun Chujio's lead. Thus, she helped Yun Chujio to the 6 branches one after another. As expected of Yun Chujio's accident, she was satisfied with the result. After hearing what had happened, Director Zhao of the Talisman Seal branch only lightly reprimanded Jian Chenjin. He asked Jian Chenjin to be in charge of restoring the prehistoric branch to its original state, and also verbally apologized to Yun Chujio and Ding Wenru. The other 5 chancellors were even more arrogant. Although Jian Chenjin had indeed communicated with the 5 faculties about this matter, they didn't know that they would take the opportunity to cause trouble. Besides, they weren't the ones who had done it, so what did it have to do with them? Qingqing, let's go find President Gu to uphold justice. It's too much of a bully. Ding Wenru said angrily. Yun Chujio shook her head. President Gu has a lot of things to attend to every day. Let's not trouble him. Let's go back to the prehistoric faculty. Qingqing, what do you want to do? Ding Wenru looked suspicious. This guy in front of her had always been vengeful. Why did he have to swallow his anger today? It was really abnormal. Yun Chujio smiled enigmatically. Then, she looked like she could not afford to live anymore. She sighed and said, "It's our fault that no one cares about us. It's better to avoid trouble. Let's go." Ding Wenru didn't know what this guy was up to, so she could only follow her back to the prehistoric branch. Although Director Zhao ordered Jian Chenjin to restore the prehistoric branch to its original state, it was clear that he didn't intend to do so. The prehistoric branch was still in a mess. Yun Chujio finally found a flat place, took out 2 chairs, and let Ding Wenru sit down. Then she said, "If we go to President Gu and complain, President Gu will be suppressed by the 6 chancellors. It will only be a small matter. Won't it be too easy for them?" Besides, Jian Chenjin made such a scene. It is most likely the idea of that bitch Jian Zhuyu. She can't wait for me to make a big scene. In this way, the image of a good student that I made with great difficulty will become a troublemaker again. So we should just endure it? Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. Endure? That's right, we can only endure it for the time being. However, the time for us to turn things around will come very soon. The harder we endure now, the happier we will be in the future. She was better than anyone at scheming in her heart. This matter was not a small matter, but President Gu did not do anything for a long time. It was obvious that he was also trying to borrow her power. With her understanding of the 2 old men's temperaments, she would definitely come over to investigate secretly in the next 2 days. When she saw how miserable the primal institution was and how their only disciple was so aggrieved, it would be very interesting. Ding Wenru pondered for a while and finally guessed something. Her face immediately revealed some anticipation. Qingqing, are you talking about those 2? Yun Chujio nodded. Well, set up a tent here for the next 2 days and won't go to class. We can't let anyone destroy such precious evidence. Ding Wenru thought of the possibility of what was about to happen and instantly felt as if she had been injected with stimulants. Qingqing, don't worry, I understand. She was even more impressed with Yun Chujio in her heart. She had too many things to learn from Qingqing. Since she wanted revenge, she had to be ruthless. If it didn't hurt, she would just wait for the right time. Therefore, the 2 of them set up 2 tents in the corner of the courtyard, waiting for the arrival of their powerful backer. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.